Glories to Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glory to Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Lila, Chapter 17, Text 217. Shukasari Udi Puna Gela Vriksha Dale Muyurera Nritya Prabhu Deke Kutuhale. Both parrots then flew onto a tree branch, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to watch the dancing of the peacocks with curiosity. Muyurere kanta deki prabhura Krishna smrti haila premaveshe Mahaprabhu umite padila. When the Lord saw the bluish necks of the peacocks, his remembrance of Krishna immediately awakened, and he fell to the ground in ecstatic love. (219) Prabhure murchita deki seyita brahmana Bhattacharya sangekare prabhura santarpan. When the Brahmana saw that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was unconscious, he and Balabhadra Bhattacharya took care of him. (220) Astevyaste Mahaprabhura Lana Bahirvasa Jalase Kakare Ange Vastrera Vatasa. They hastily sprinkled water over the Lord's body. Then they took up his outer cloth and began to fan him with it. (221) Prabhu Karne Krishna Nama Kahe Uchakari Chaitanya Pana Prabhu Yana Gada Gari. They then began to chant the holy name of Krishna into the Lord's ear. When the Lord regained consciousness, he began rolling on the ground. (222) Kantaka Durga Mavane Angakshata Haila Bhattacharya Kolekari Prabhure Susta Kaila. When the Lord rolled on the ground, sharp thorns injured his body. Taking him on his lap, Balabhadra Bhattacharya pacified him. (223) Krishna Veshe Prabhura Preme Gargar Karamana Bol Bolkari Uti Karena Bol Bolkari Uti Karena Nartana. The mind of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wandered in ecstatic love of Krishna. He immediately stood up and said, "Chant, chant." Then he himself began to dance. (224) Bhattacharya Seyi Vipra Krishna Nama Gaya Nachite Nachite Pate Prabhu Chaliyaya. Being thus ordered by the Lord, both Balabhadra Bhattacharya and the Brahmana began to chant the holy name of Krishna. Then the Lord, dancing and dancing, proceeded along the path. 225. Prabhura prema vesha dekhi brahmana vishmita. Prabhura raksha lagi vipra haila chintita. The Brahmana was astounded to see the symptoms of ecstatic love exhibited by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then he became anxious to give the Lord protection. 226. Nilachale chilayarte prema veshamana vrindavana yarte pate haila sataguna. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mind was absorbed in ecstatic love at Jagannath Puri, but when he passed along the road on the way to Vrindavan, that love increased 100 times. 227. Sahasra guna prema bade mathura darshane laksha guna prema bade ramena yavivane. The Lord's ecstatic love increased 1,000 times when he visited Mathura, but it increased 100,000 times when he wandered in the forests of Vrindavan. 228 through 229. Anyadesha prema uchale vrindavane name saksha brahmaye ebese vrindavane preme gara gara mana ratri diva ase snana bhikshadi nirvaha karena abhyase. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was elsewhere, the very name of Vrindavan was sufficient to increase his ecstatic love. Now, when he was actually traveling in the Vrindavan forest, his mind was absorbed in great ecstatic love day and night. He ate and bathed simply out of habit. 230. Ehi mata premaya vat brahmila bharavana ekatra likhi lun sarvatra nayaya varnana. Thus I have written a description of the ecstatic love of Lord Chaitanya manifested in one of the places he visited while walking through the 12 forests of Vrindavan. To describe what he experienced everywhere would be impossible. 231. Vrindavane haila prabhura yateka premera vikara koti grante ananta likhe natahara vistara. Lord Ananta writes millions of books elaborately describing the transformations of ecstatic love experienced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Vrindavan. 232. Tabuli ki vare nare tara ekakana udesha kari te kari digdarashana. Since Lord Ananta himself cannot describe even a fragment of these pastimes, I am simply pointing out the direction. 233. Jagat Vasila Chaitanya Lilara Patare Yandra Yata Sakti Tata Patare Santare. The whole world became merged in the inundation of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One can swim in that water to the extent that he has the strength. 234. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Padeyara Asa Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Krishna Dasa. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Lila, 17th chapter, describing the Lord's traveling to Vrindavan. Madhya Lila, chapter 18. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's visit to Sri Vrindavan. The following summary of the 18th chapter is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhasya. In the village of Aritgram, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discovered the transcendental lakes known as Radhakund and Shyamkund. He then saw the deity Harideva at Govardhan village. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had no desire to climb Govardhan hill because the hill is worshipped as Krishna. The Gopal deity could understand the mind of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, on the plea of being attacked by Muslims, Gopal transferred himself to the village of Gantuli Gram. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then went to Gantuli Gram to see Lord Gopal. Some years later, Lord Gopal also went to Mathura, to the house of Vittalesvara, and stayed there for 1 month just to give an audience to Srila Rupa Goswami. After visiting Nandi Vasvara, Pavana Sarovara, Sesha Sai, Kela Tirtha, Bandhiravana, Bhadravana, Lohavana, and Mahavana, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gokula and then finally returned to Mathura. Seeing a great crowd in Mathura, he moved his residence near Akrura Ghat, and from there he went every day to Vrindavan to see Kaliya Hrada, Vadasaditya Ghat, Kesi Ghat, Rasa Stali, Chira Ghat, and Amlitala. At Kaliya Lake, many people mistook a fisherman for Krishna. When some respectable people came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they expressed their opinion that when one takes sannyas, he becomes Narayan. Their mistake was corrected by the Lord. In this way, their Krishna consciousness was awakened, and they could understand that a sannyasi is simply a living entity and not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his bath at Akrura Ghat, he submerged himself in the water for a long time. Balabhadra Bhattacharya decided to take Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Prayag after visiting the holy place known as Soro Kshetra. While stopping near a village on the way to Prayag, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fainted in ecstatic love. Some Patana soldiers who were passing through saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and falsely concluded that the Lord's associate, Balabhadra Bhattacharya and others, had killed the Lord with a poison named Dutura and were taking his wealth. Thus the soldiers arrested him. However, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regained his senses, his associates were released. He talked with the person who was supposed to be a holy man in the party. From the Quran, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established devotional service to Krishna. Thus the leader of the soldiers, named Vijuli Khan, surrendered to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he and his party became devotees of Lord Krishna. The same village today is known as the village of Patana Vaishnavas. After bathing in the Ganges at Soro, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Prayag, at the confluence of 3 rivers, the Ganges, Yamuna, and Saraswati. Vrindavan Stiracharan Nandayan Svabhau Lokanai Atmanam Chatad Alokad Gorangaha Parito Bronit. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled all over Vrindavan and pleased all living entities, moving and non-moving. With his glances, the Lord took much personal pleasure in seeing everyone. In this way, Lord Gauranga traveled in Vrindavan. Text 2. Jaya Jaya Gora Chandra Jaya Nitya Nanda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Gaura Chandra. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya headed by Srivas Thakur. Text 3. Ehi Mata Mahaprabhu Nachite Nachite Aritrameyasi Bhaya Haila Achambite. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced in ecstasy, but when he arrived at Aritgram, his sense perception was awakened. Purport. Aritgram is also called Aristagram. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood that in the village of Aristasura had been killed by Krishna. While there, he inquired about Radhakund, but no one could tell him where it was. The Brahmana accompanying him could also not ascertain its whereabouts. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could then understand that the holy places known as Radhakund and Shyamkund were at that time lost to everyone's vision. He therefore discovered Radhakund and Shyamkund, which are two reservoirs of water and two paddy fields. Although there was very little water, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was omniscient and could understand that formerly these two ponds were called Sri Radhakund and Shyamkund. In this way, Radhakund and Shyamkund were discovered. Four. Arite Radha Kunvarta Puche Lokastane Kehanahi Kahe Sanghera Brahmana Najane. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the local people, "Where is Radhakund?" No one could inform him, and the Brahmana accompanying him did not know either. 5. Tirthaluta Jani Prabhu Sarvagya Bhagavan Ruhidanya Kshetre Alpa Jale Kailash Nana. The Lord then understood that the holy place called Radhakund was no longer visible. However, being the omniscient Supreme Personality of Godhead, he discovered Radhakund and Shyamkund in two paddy fields. There was only a little water, but he took his bath there. 6. Dikisaba Gramyalokera Vishmaya Hailamana Preme Prabhu Kare Radha Kundera Stavana. When people of the village saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taking his bath in those two ponds in the middle of the paddy fields, they were very much astonished. The Lord then offered his prayers to Sri Radhakund. 7. Sabhagopi Haite Radha Krishnera Prayasi Taiche Radha Kunda Priya Priyara Sarasi. Translation. Of all the gopis, Radharani is the dearmost. Similarly, the lake known as Radhakund is very dear to the Lord because it is very dear to Srimati Radharani. Yata Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tata Sarvago Vishu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Vallabha. Just as Srimati Radharani is most dear to Lord Krishna, so her lake, known as Radhakund, is also very dear to him. Of all the gopis, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most beloved. This is a verse from the Padma Purana. Yehi kunde nitya Krishna Radhikara sange Jale jala keli kare Tire rasa range. In that lake, Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani used to sport daily in the water and have a rasa dance on the bank. 10. Sehi kunde yehi eka vara karishnana tandre radha sama prema Krishna kare dana. Indeed, Lord Krishna gives ecstatic love like that of Srimati Radharani to whoever bathes in that lake, even once in his lifetime. 11. Kundera madhuriyena radhara madhurima Kundera mahimayena radhara mahima. The attraction of Radha Kund is as sweet as that of Srimati Radharani. Similarly, the glories of the Kund are as great as Srimati Radharani's. 12. Shri Radheva Haristariya Sarasi Pristad Dubhutais Fire Gonar Yasyam Shri Yuta Madhavendur Anisam Fritya Toya Kridati Premasmin Bhatta Radhi Keva Labhate Yasyam Sakrit Nanakrit Tasya Vai Mahima Tata Madhurima Kanastu Varnya Chitao. Because of this wonderful transcendental qualities, Radha Kund is as dear to Krishna as Srimati Radharani. It was in that lake that the all-opulent Lord Sri Krishna performed his pastimes with Srimati Radharani with great pleasure and transcendental bliss. Whoever bathes there just once in Radha Kund attains Srimati Radharani's loving attraction for Sri Krishna. Who within this world can describe the glories of sweetness of Sri Radha Kund? Purport. This verse is found in the Govinda Lila Mrita 7.102. 13. Ehi mata stuti kare prema vishtahana tirendritya kare kund lila sanariya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus offered prayers to Radha Kund. Overwhelmed by ecstatic love, he danced on the bank, remembering the pastimes Lord Krishna performed on the bank of Radha Kund. 14. Kundera nriti kalana tilaka karila Bhattacharya dvara mritika sange karilaila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then marks his body with tilak made from the mud of Radha Kund, and with the help of Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he collected some of the mud and took it with him. 15. Tabe chali aila prabhu sumana sarobhara tahan govardhana dekhi aila vibhala. From Radha Kund, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Sumhalas lake, where he saw Govardhan hill. From there, he was overwhelmed with joy. 16. Govardhana dekhi prabhu haila dandavat ekashila alingiya haila unmata. When the Lord saw Govardhan hill, he immediately offered obeisances, falling down on the ground like a rod. He embraced one piece of rock from Govardhan hill and became mad. 17. Preme mata kali aila, preme mata chali aila, Govardhan Rama, Harideva dekitahan, aila pranama. Mad with ecstatic love, the Lord came to the village known as Govardhan. There he saw the deity named Haridev and offered his obeisances unto him. (18) Mathura Padvera Paschima Dhalayandra Vasa Harideva Narayana Hariparakasha. Haridev is an incarnation of Narayana, and his residence is on the western petal of the lotus of Mathura. 19. Harideva Agenase Prema Matahana Sabaloka Dekite Aila Ascharya Suniya. Mad with ecstatic love, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to dance before the Haridev deity. Hearing of the Lord's wonderful activities, all the people came to see him. 20. Prabhu Prema Saundarya Deki Loke Chamatkara Haridevera Britya Prabhu Karila Satkara. The people were astonished when they saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love and personal beauty. The priests who served the Haridev deity offered the Lord a good reception. 21. Bhattacharya Brahmakunde Pakayana Kaila Brahmakunde Snanakari Prabhu Bhiksha Kaila. At Brahmakund, the Bhattacharya cooked food, and the Lord, after taking his bath at Brahmakund, accepted his lunch. 22. Seratri Rahila Hari Devera Mandire Ratre Mahaprabhu Kare Manete Vichare. That night the Lord stayed at the temple of Haridev, and during the night he began to reflect. 23. Govardhana Upare Ami Kabuna Chadiva Gopala Rai Radhara Shana Kemane Paiva. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought, since I shall not at any time climb Govardhan Hill, how shall I be able to see Gopala Roy? 24. Etamane Kari Prabhu Bhavna Kari Rahila Janiya Gopala Kichu Bangi Utaila. Thinking in this way, the Lord remained silent, and Lord Gopal, knowing his contemplation, played a trick. 25. Naruru Kshave Sailam Svasmai Bhakta Bhimani Varhuya Gire Krishna Goraya Svam Adarshayat. Coming down from Govardhan Hill, Lord Gopal granted an interview to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was unwilling to climb the hill, thinking himself a devotee of the Lord. 26. Anakuta name grame gopalera stiti Rajaputa lokera sei grame vasati. Gopala stayed in a village called Anukuta Gram on Govardhan Hill. The villagers who lived in that village were mainly from Rajasthan. Purport. The village named Anukat Gram is referred to in Bhakti Ratnakara, 5th wave. Gopa Gopi Munjayena Kautuka Apara Ehetu Aniyora Namase Ihara Anakuta Stana Ei Deka Srinivasa Estana Darshane Haya Orna Abhilasa. Here all the gopis and the gopas enjoyed wonderful pastimes with Sri Krishna. Therefore this place is called Aniyora. The Anakuta ceremony was celebrated here. O Srinivas, whoever sees this place has all his desires fulfilled. It is also stated, Kundera nikata deka nivida kanhana, etai gopala chila, hana sangopana. Look at these dense forests near the Kund. It was there that Gopal was concealed. Also, the Stavavali Braja Vilas Stava 75 by Raghunath Das Goswami states, Rajendra Bharyar Pita Bhogam Uchar Dripabrat Kayam Agarir Utka Varena Radham Chalayam Vibhunte Yatrana Kutam Taraham Prabhadaye. When Nanda Maharaj offered a large quantity of food to Govardhan Hill, Krishna assumed a gigantic form and eagerly invited everyone to ask boons from him. Then, deceiving even Srimati Radharani, he ate all the offered food. Let me take shelter of the place known as Anakut, where Lord Krishna enjoyed these pastimes. "27. Ekajana asiratre gramika balila, tomhara grama marite turuka dhari sajila." One person who came to the village informed the inhabitants, "The Turkish soldiers are now preparing to attack your village." 28. Ajiratre e palaha rarahiha ekajana, Dakura lana bhaga asibe kali yavana. Flee this village tonight, and do not allow one person to remain. Take the deity with you and leave, for the Muslim soldiers will come tomorrow. 29. Suniya gramiraloka chintita haila, Pratame gopala lana, kantuli grami kuhila. Hearing this, all the villagers became very anxious. They first took Gopal and moved him to a village known as Gantuli. Vipragrehe Gopalera nibrite sevana, Rama ujara haila, palaila sarvajana. The Gopal deity was kept in the house of a Brahmin, and his worship was conducted secretly. Everyone fled, and thus the village of Anakuta was deserted. 31. Arche mlecha bhaye gopala bhage badhe bhare, Wandira chadi kunje rahe ki bhagramantare. Due to the fear of the Muslims, the Gopal deity was moved from one place to another again and again. Thus giving up his temple, Lord Gopal would sometimes live in a bush and sometimes in one village after another. Thus ends our reading for today. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad, Bhakti Nirmala Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.